Hey everyone, we're bringing Kevin in at the same time. We just went live exactly now. Kevin, your timing is fantastic.
Great.
A little quick pre-show thing. Yesterday, I was lucky enough to, along with our guy Mark, one of our bloggers, we got a chance to interview AJ Galante, who is part of this documentary. Have you seen it yet on Netflix? The Danbury Trashers documentary, Kevin?
No, I haven't seen the documentary. I'm aware of who they were. I'm surprised so many people said they didn't know about that because it was a pretty big story back when
Mike didn't know about it. I knew very little about it, but Mike, but it was during the lockout year,
Right.
And it's a crazy story, and it's a crazy documentary. We did a 45-minute interview with AJ Galante, who was the 17-year-old kid who was given by his father a hockey team for when he was 17. Basically, he was made the GM and the president, and they just formed a hockey team, the UHL, called the Danbury Trashers. His dad was in the waste management business, sort of. Well, definitely in the big time in waste management, but also had lots of run-ins with the law.
So, sort of is the key phrase there.
Yeah, a lot. Like, AJ Galante couldn't have been a nicer guy, and his interview was really and this documentary is just mind-boggling, like the stuff that went on. So I don't know. Hey Russ, how you doing?
Hey, good. How are you?
Good. I was just saying I got a chance to interview AJ Galante yesterday from the Danbury Trashers for a while. And have you seen the documentary yet?
I haven't seen the documentary, but we had done some coverage on them back in the day on my website.
Yeah.
We used to send somebody there, so I knew about some of the shenanigans. Obviously,
what an incredible story. The documentary is worth watching. It's like
I'll check it out.
Basically, they recreated the Broad Street Bullies in the UHL.
I mean, it was worse than that because it was a corrupt Broad Street Bully.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Did they hire Don Selesky?
I mean, but the Galante family is basically the family that the Sopranos were modeled after. It's really fascinating.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Russ, do you have any pre-show?
Not in particular. I actually have one quick thing. I can give you one quick thing. So I'm here, in Pittsburgh, and there's right now the Penguins are practicing, and they also have a USHL season going on, so a tournament, and there's a lot of parking spots that are filled, and I knew that, so I got here early, and you're trying to get those last few spots. So one guy told me to slow down in the parking lot, but he doesn't realize when you grow up in New York, and especially if you ever had to work in the city or go to the city, parking spots are everything, like you saw in Seinfeld with Costanza, and this guy doesn't realize that's how you survive. That's the only way I know how to get a parking spot before the next guy. And it was funny because I got to a spot at the same time as another guy, and we both looked at each other, and I was like, I got to take it because I had to get in the ring. So,
Russ, I'm not going to go into the details of the story, which I shared with you, but that's what happened to me on the weekend. And let's just say that I won the parking spot, and the guy who finished second was not too happy, and I won't go any further than that.
All right, let's get started because I don't know how long we have, Russ.
Yep.
All right, here we go. Ready? So here we go. Hello, Hockey World. Today is Thursday, September 23rd, 2021.
I'm Michael Agello.
I'm Russ Cohen from Sportsology.
Kevin Allen, Hockey Buzz.
And I'm Eklund. You're watching the HockeyBuzzcast on HockeyBuzz.com. And this is the podcast that comes to you every Monday through Friday on HockeyBuzz.com.
HockeyGiz.com.
You know what I'm saying? And we fill you in on the comings and goings of the Hockey World. We have to start today with what was pretty much expected in Buffalo, but Eichel failed his physical, and the captaincy has been stripped from him. And as Friedman had talked about yesterday, we had talked about this. It had actually happened to me. It's just, I think this is purposeless. And I talked to a couple people about it, and one other GM I talked to did say, well, listen, if you're going to say, hey, we're starting camp, this is the new thing. It's all brand new. We got to start from scratch. We got to go new. He said, that's why you do it. He says, you just take it away from me and say, we're going, this is it. You're not part of our team anymore. But when you think about how the Sabres have played this out, it's insane. I mean, to me, I don't know. I think that this whole to take away the captaincy and make this a public thing, there seems to be no point except for almost embarrassment and weakening your own position in negotiations. So that's what I see. Kevin, you see anything?
Yeah, no, I didn't like it because I don't think you could strip it from him and make no public spectacle. I mean, this reminds me of the television show when I was a kid called Brandon, where Chuck Connors came in and they rip off his epaulets and break the sword over the knee. They basically drum him out and he loses his rank and all that. I mean, why even bother with this? I mean, it's going to happen. So you just, you don't say anything. There's just no captain during the training camp. And if someone asks you about it, you can say, well, you know where we're at, he's not likely to come back, but you're not going to, they didn't name a captain today. They don't need to name a captain. They shouldn't name a captain until they see what's going on. So I don't know. It just seemed needless to me and drawing attention to the whole situation yet again when they didn't need to do it. But, I certainly see what your GM was saying just in terms of sometimes you want a cleansing breath, but I don't think they needed it this early.
Yeah, I looked at it like a court martial, like the same as you did, Kev. Like basically they court martialed in front of everybody, and it's like now they've made it very awkward for the next captain. Whenever that next captain is there, it is going to be awkward.
Well, there won't be a captain for a couple of years at least. That's what they'll end up doing because of that very reason, Russ. But all I can say is I compare the two sides in this situation. It's like World War I before it started. You just have things going on both sides that just contribute to, I think, people building up to just a complete acrimony. And this is just another situation. They didn't need to do it. Both sides are hardened on their point of view. Adams came out today and said, our doctors, we believe in our doctors, and our doctors say that the fusion surgery is the way to go. Obviously, Eichel doesn't agree. He's refusing to do it. He wants the disc replacement. So nothing is moved, even though Adams is talking to Pat Brisson multiple times a day, is what he said in the press conference. So and he reiterated, well, Jack Eichel is a franchise player, so we expect to get the return of a franchise player. The problem is he's a broken franchise player, and the only way you're going to get that value is to allow him to get a surgery, and they're not going to allow him to get the surgery he wants to get. So where is this going to go?
That's what I'm saying. They've completely weakened their negotiating strength here. Like, if you at least let him come back and play, maybe that's one option. If you can't, because right now they're not getting anywhere near what they want to get from him, and they're not going to now because of what they did, in my opinion. It's completely.
Yeah, I'm not so sure that this will affect that, but I don't like it anyway. I just don't see the need for it all. And but I think everybody knows what Jack Eichel can do. I think everyone understands the situation. I think they even understand the medical, side of it, the fusion versus. But I'm sure everybody who has investigated this trade has talked about it with their team physician, their orthopedic expert, about what this means and this new surgery, and I'm sure they all have their opinions on it. But at some point it'll get worked out. But it doesn't. The
optics are bad. The fact that they're answering the same questions in a press conference that, like Mike said, that they've answered months before that, really doesn't do anybody any good. Like, they could have just put out a press release and avoided the whole thing. Really, they didn't have to go and do this, but they did. So now it's like something else that's going to be talked about for a lot of camp.
Well, the captaincy is such a thing in the NHL. Like, you all remember, like the C on television being stripped off of Eric Lindros's jersey and sewn onto Eric Desjardins' jersey. They showed us that in the Philly market on television. Like, they're like, we're in the preview. It's like, welcome to the Wells Fargo Center, and there you see this guy pulling threads out of the C on Lindros's jersey.
Yeah,
and the C being I'm like, what the hell is going on?
One of the more monumental moments in the history of the Leafs in my lifetime was Harold Ballard stripping Darryl Sittler of the captaincy. So there was an open war between Ballard, Punch Imlock, and the core group of that late '70s Leaf team, and they stripped him of the captaincy. Then I think he got it back before they ended up trading him, but they ended up trading most of the core group of that team. So that's why I'm saying there's a pitched battle here between Eichel, his representatives, and the Sabres, and I don't think there's a win for the Sabres here because I don't think they're going to get anywhere close to the value that they want. They may get good value back from him because he is a good player, Russ, but I can't see them getting 4 first-round picks or whatever.
No, nothing like that.
Four first-round equivalents.
Yes.
Which is a completely different thing.
That is different. Yeah. They might get that because you could always get 1 or 2 that really haven't ripened on the vine. And
and I've had discussions with GMs like where, I'm trying to think of an example where a guy wasn't taken in the first round, but you can make a case that he's a first-round equivalent because of how he plays.
And what Kevin Adams is the game that Kevin Adams is playing is he's playing Joe Sakic here in the Matt Duchene situation. He's holding and holding and holding and hoping that somebody comes up and meets his price, and then he looks like a hero. They cannot do another Ryan O'Reilly situation where they get taken to the cleaners, and they got taken to the cleaners because ownership would not pay the signing bonus.
Right.
Yeah, but these kind of trades are tricky too with regard to because they do want a first round draft pick, but it's kind of like you really do now with 32 teams in the league have to really project where that first round pick is going to be.
Yeah.
Because there's a real, most of these, we talk about analytics a lot, but I know most teams have done a deep dive into the success rates in the draft, and there is a significant difference between picking late in the first round and picking in the top 15 in the first round in terms of success rates. So, even with Kotkaniemi, you got that pick, but, if you think Carolina is going to be down in the 26 range, well, that's almost a second rounder for one thing.
Right.
Right. And the second rounder today isn't like a second rounder was in 1976.
No.
So it's a lot more complicated now, and trying to sort through all that, and sometimes the GM say, well, take our second rounder because we're not really good, and it's probably going to be, or we got somebody's second rounder, and it's going to be.
But are we even going to see him play this season? We might not.
I think we will, but I think that's a fair question to ask, Russ.
Yeah, right. It is a fair question to ask.
And based on him still being injured now, I think the window is closing on him participating in the Olympics. Which again, I'm not sure that we're even going to see these teams play in these countries play in the Olympics because of everything going on. But one bit of news in your neck of the woods, Russ, Hextall in his opening of the training camp media availability indicated Evgeny Malkin is going to miss at least the first 2 months of the season. That goes on top of Crosby probably missing the start of the season, although they don't think he's going to miss much time. But the Penguins, this is a team that really didn't change their goaltending, which was a big problem and probably a key to them losing to the Islanders in the first round. They lost Brandon Tanev. They lost Jared McCann. This isn't as good a team as they were last year. Now you're talking about their top 2 centers being gone.
No, it's true. And I could see Ron from here, actually, looking out at practice. And they're having a hard practice. Like, I give them credit. I think they're going to gut it out for a while. I think they're going to play very tough hockey. I think they're going to play different than the Penguins are used to playing because they're missing those 2 guys. Yeah. And I think they're going to, they're going to have to get good goaltending because I think they're going to be close games. But they still might have enough to stay in it, though, while those guys are out. Because like you said, Crosby won't be out for long. But, I did have this thought. If I were ESPN, why wouldn't I have asked Sidney Crosby to come in and, host SportsCenter before this hockey season started, right when camp was opening? He probably would have done it. And it would have been a great kickoff for the sport. And, nah.
It is. Yeah, I like where you're going with it. But is his personality really good for that?
I think he would do it. Yeah, I think he would surprise you. Yeah, I think
he's a good guy. I'm not saying he's not a good guy, but he's.
I know what I'm saying.
He's not a Boolean. Yeah. And he's not.
Yeah.
But okay. when you're ESPN, would you rather kick off your coverage of the hockey season being Sidney Crosby, one of the greatest players in the game and a definite Hall of Famer, or Evander Kane, which we're going to talk about in a second? Because
Right.
that was the kickoff, for like it or not, was the interview with Linda Cohen of Evander Kane. And the NHL really wants to accentuate that story.
Before we talk about Evander Kane, I really don't want to talk about him at all.
Well, let me talk a little bit about the Penguins.
Go ahead.
I'm not so sure Crosby will miss any games. I think that's the worst case scenario. And if he does miss, I don't think it'll be more than a couple. But the Malkin injury is significant enough. And as Mike just said, they really didn't do anything. Like before, I knew how long Malkin was going to be out. I had predicted them, obviously out of the playoffs. And, in my 30-some years of covering the NHL, I bet I only picked them to fall out of the playoffs maybe 4 or 5 times, when they had those bad, years. I've always just viewed them as a team that was going to get in, and they're all missed. So this is really kind of monumental that they really are on the bubble. In my mind, I don't know how you could see them anything but that.
Oh, I know. I completely agree with you. And last year they even had, and to me they had issues last year that were showing up, but they still managed to overcome it with their talent. How long you keep doing that, is a big question. I mean, there were times when you watched the Penguins play last year live, even that they just looked absolutely terrible, and you could see that they were going to have problems for sure.
They've added some under the radar players here, and I see some players here too that they're trying out from other teams. Like Michael Chaput is here, who was a Flyers draft pick from back in the day, and he does have some offensive ability. Pierre-Olivier Joseph looks great. Like if he's all of a sudden ready to spring on the NHL, that's a hell of a guy to add to the blue line. So I think they do still have enough of those kinds of players to mix in to get by.
That would be the Penguins' history, right? Like the Penguins' history would be like just when they get to this point where we're picking them out of the playoffs, they find something.
But what this means, Russ, is that Brian Boyle is going to get an NHL contract because if Crosby is out for a couple weeks, worst case scenario, like Kevin said, but without Malkin for 2 months, they're going to have to have somebody to plug in, even as a fourth line center, to move the centers up. I mean, it's going to be a challenge for them. I mean, this division is tough. We know that the Devils are improved, the Rangers are improved. I think the only teams that have taken a step back are probably Washington and Pittsburgh. And Washington got some bad news about Nicholas Backstrom. He's rehabilitating his hip. He's out week to week. He may miss all training camp. It could extend to the beginning of the regular season. So,
but every team is going to have this problem. Like Kevin Hayes is out now. Backstrom's out now. Malkin's out. Every team in the East.
Carey Price, Mike Hoffman, and Byron Austin Matthews in Toronto is recovering from the wrist injury, or wrist surgery.
The healthiest team in the East is probably the Devils.
Yeah, it is weird. This comes off of
Metro.
Comes off a baseball season where Russ, I don't remember so many guys in baseball being injured.
Oh no, the Mets have used like 70 players this year.
Yeah, no, it's unbelievable, and how often players were on the 10-day disabled list, and it looks like hockey's going right out. Yesterday was the day before the start of training camp, and I ran a story about the Red Wings about their injured list. There's 5 or 6 guys on it.
Well, already,
we haven't even started yet.
It's because it's a product. It's a product of this being the shortest off season in NHL history. So usually these players are fully recovered or almost recovered by the time training camp starts.
I think we do have to talk about Tyler Bertuzzi. Yesterday, Steve Yzerman, I thought he handled that amazingly well. He basically came out, and the first question, and some teams have sort of dodged it a little bit, just not naming the player. But he just came out and he said we have one unvaccinated player. It's Tyler Bertuzzi. He was asked whether he was disappointed, and he said no. It's personal choice, and we can't make him do it. He's going to have to do what he's going to do. And he goes, but he said, I'm vaccinated and my family's vaccinated. I'll leave it at that. He said, And today, Tyler Bertuzzi came out and said, personal choice, kept repeating the same three phrases, my decision. I asked him, did you at least talk to anybody about it? He said, my family and my fiance. He didn't elaborate whatsoever. And then asked Dylan Larkin, I said, that's great that it's his personal choice, but, it impacts your team, not only from a competitive standpoint, but from personal safety. You now have an unvaccinated player, and even though he can't do all the things you can do, he can't go in your gym, he can't go in the hotel bar, he can't go in a lot of different places. He will be in your dressing room. He'll sit on the bench next to you, Dylan. I mean, he's on your line.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that? Did you have to talk to the team? And it sounded like Dylan was going to talk about it a little bit, and then he just kind of shuffled off a little bit, saying, he had talked to him a lot about it. He knows, why he's doing it, but, that's his choice to talk about if he wants to. So, but the irony of that is, and I'm going to write a column about this today, is if you were in a game with the Red Wings and any other team, and somebody on the Red Wings needed to be protected, Tyler Bertuzzi would be first in line. That is the irony.
Right.
Yet he would not, in this situation, stand up for his teammates. So I kind of fault him in this. I think this is a harsh thing to say because he's getting paid $4.75 million, but I think I might have respected him had he just said like they did during COVID, a few more baseball players, a few football players, and I think one hockey player said, I'm just going to sit out the season. I might have respected him if he had done that.
Yeah, the opt out I think is October 1st was the deadline. But if he does this, he still gets I think 70%. Somebody said it was like he was going to miss 10% of the games because of the games.
Yeah, a little over that. He's going to miss 9 of 82. So
and escrow is 20%, so he's going to lose 30% of his salary this year. So he probably figures at least I get 70%, and I'm only going to miss the 30% of the games and the money because of escrow. So at least he's getting something. But yeah, I mean the division that it causes the team. I mean, we heard about the Zach Ronaldo thing, Russ, and then now apparently Cody Wild, who isn't exactly been a raging success in the Islanders organizations. He came out and said, hoping my human rights are enough to let me play. Because he's not taking the vaccine. Honestly, yes, you have the right not to take the vaccine, but the penalties are so stringent right now in the league against that. You're really wrecking your career if you don't do it.
Well, yes. Don't you find it crazy, though, that like Tyler Bertuzzi thus far is the only one who I've heard of who's an actually, important, significant, critical player.
Right.
He's not the only one that's being invited to camp that I've heard of so far. So.
I'm sure there's a few others because they said there were going to be about 10 to 15.
Right.
The interesting thing about Bertuzzi is he's going to lose like $400,000 for just a game. He can't go to.
$455,000.
Yeah, it's a lot of money.
Well, Edmonton's Archibald also is another one.
Yeah, but he's a fourth liner.
No, you're right.
Yeah.
Well,
he's going to end up in the minors if he doesn't.
Wild, it wouldn't shock me if Lou trades him or something,
or terminates him.
Yeah.
But no, the only other one. I mean, we've like I said, William Nylander is in the process of taking. He'll be fully vaccinated by the start of the season. He took one shot, is getting the second one. Duncan Keith apparently was not going to get vaccinated, but then decided that he had to. And somebody was making the point, like Duncan Keith was brought in to be a leader on that team. It's like, how can you be a leader if you're not there? And he's not going to be there for.
Yeah, he's missing a week of camp. Ken Holland came on the radio and said a week, and he put Ken Holland in the top spot because Ken Holland can't say anything bad about him, but he can't be thrilled about it that he just brought this guy over, and for those reasons you just said, Mike, and he's going to miss a week of camp, and he's an older player.
Well, there's other issues here, too, beyond just the games in Canada. Bertuzzi is going to have to get to the games when they're in the middle, if they're in a road trip. It's not so hard. The first one I looked at, they're going to Montreal, and then the next day they play in Chicago, so he could jump in his car and go to Chicago from Michigan. But you like your team together. You don't like everybody kind of being on their
They're not
own.
going to let him travel with the team. Is that the deal?
Well, no, but he can't because they're flying to Montreal first.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah, and then going to Chicago. So I haven't looked at the other ones. Now they have a trip where they're in, I think, Edmonton, Calgary, Vancouver. I don't know if there's an LA on top of that or if there's something before. But, there are going to be logistical issues as well, and lost practices.
Yeah.
So
I would get the Amtrak season pass if I were Tyler Bertuzzi.
So, yeah,
something like that, right?
Yeah, I think in Canada though, wouldn't it have been a worse situation because they wouldn't have been able to come in the U.S., right?
Yeah, right.
So
yes,
that's why I think Duncan Keith. I think his teammates might have had a discussion with him. That's my feeling of what happened to Duncan Keith, because he's with all due respect, it doesn't shock me that Duncan Keith didn't get it, having talked to him and everything, because he's, a bit of a maverick, but he's really a team guy. So I think if his teammates ask him to do it, I'm sure that played a role.
And sorry, go ahead.
Am I wrong that the only player that has not been vaccinated that is invited to camp at all is Bertuzzi? Like, as everyone else so far that I've seen is not allowed to even come to camp, right?
Well, I mean, Nylander is at camp, even though he's only got one of the 2 shots.
Right, they know he's. But the other ones, we
don't really know because they haven't identified them all.
Yeah, but so far the ones we've identified, I think, have not, like Wild and like we've talked about, or Ronaldo have not been invited. I mean, but Bertuzzi, who's a really good player, is invited. Does that bother anybody?
No, that's a really fair question, Eklund. I mean, I think Yzerman last night on social media was taking some hits from.
Yeah.
Hey, if you don't like it, send him to the minors. So.
Yeah, I mean, it just seems like a little bit a weird stance to take, and not a very good, I don't know, not a good example to make in some way, shape, or form. Anyway, we're going to get into the Tampa Bay Lightning.
Well,
go ahead, Mike. You can start.
We won't spend a lot of time on it, but we just have to note that, yes, Evander Kane was cleared of any gambling allegations yesterday, and then it quickly moved to additional unrelated allegations. This guy, I mean, first it's bankruptcy, then it's gambling, now it's domestic violence and spousal abuse. So he goes from one investigation to another investigation to another investigation. And the Sharks basically told him to stay away from training camp until this is resolved. It's just, I mean, at a certain point, now if he's cleared of this, and I don't know how he's going to be cleared of this because it's a he said, she said. I don't know. I mean,
well, the only thing I could say is Deshaun Watson hasn't been cleared of anything, and they're not playing him in Houston. Right. So I could see Evander Kane missing many, many games this year because they just don't want him there.
Well, at least he's vaccinated.
right. Let's give him some credit. There we go. Well played indeed.
Okay.
So, today we're going to do a different team, and if I have to bug out at any point here, I'm sorry. There's a vicious lightning storm going on around me right now. I don't know if you can hear it or not, but there's big thunder, and we lose power on the drop of a hat here. So who knows?
Don't worry. If that happens, I can carry on. I'm going to mute.
See ya.
What's up? You got to go, Russ?
No, I said there's a big thunder cloud.
Okay. Cool. No, it's good. I'm going to mute you the rest of the times because you're
a
little bit noisy.
Okay,
cool. All right, good. Excellent. Here we go. So today we're going to talk about the Tampa Bay Lightning and why I think they could win the Stanley Cup. And this is a long shot, but I'm going to go for it.
Yeah, the Sabres had a better chance.
I'm going from having to make my arguments for the Buffalo Sabres and the Detroit Red Wings over the last 2 days. So today I'm going to try my best to tell you that I think that Kevin Allen should tell you why Tampa Bay Lightning are going to win the Stanley Cup, because He has a great article today on 5 reasons why they could and 5 reasons why they can't. So I'm just gonna say they're a good team and that's why they can win it, and they've won it twice. So hey, why not?
Yeah. But
Kevin,
by the
what are
way,
your thoughts?
I haven't said this yet, but I really enjoy this, and I like the fun involved of trying to make an argument for why the Buffalo Sabres and the Coyotes and everything. This is a really good idea.
And I love destroying those arguments, Kevin.
Yeah, he does. I mean, we got to make sure.
That's why you convinced me those 3 teams aren't going to win, but this one is going to be harder.
Yeah, no, there's just so much about the Lightning to like, even though they've lost their some of their depth. It has eroded, but you start with Vasilevsky, obviously. Best goalie in the league. And, I made a point in my column, because I know this is true, that he's reached the point where he's so good now that they really just take him for granted. Like, he has so much composure. He makes the big save at the right time that we don't even talk about that anymore. Just, we just accept the fact that, they've got a clear-cut advantage in net. They've got Brisebois as well, who's a general manager. And there's another guy, like, you wouldn't think that a guy who has been the GM of back-to-back Stanley Cup champions is underrated, but, we don't talk about him often enough. I mean, we say Steve Yzerman, built that team, but we forget that it was Brisebois who brought the final pieces in that put it all together. The Goodrow, Coleman, adding those guys that were hard to play against Maroon. These are guys that really put that team over the top. And then, of course, you have the core players are still there. We still got Kucherov. We still got Stamkos. We still got Braden Point. We still got Hedman, Vasilevsky, McDonough. There's still a lot of core players there. So even though they've lost their depth, they have a collection of players that are better than players from most teams.
Well, I'll leave the young players coming up to Russ because he knows more about them. But I'll say this. Brisebois was very adept with the limited amount of cap space that he had after moving out, his entire third line and Tyler Johnson, to get players to come in support roles that are, really going to be good for them. And on defense, they bring back Zach Bogosian. And Bogosian, played well in Toronto last year. They got him for less than $1 million. He's a solid bottom pairing guy. They bring in Pierre-Edouard Bellemare, who was with Vegas, and he's a solid depth forward. They bring in Corey Perry, who we know what he's done in the last 2 years in the playoffs with Dallas and Montreal. They had, and then Russ. Then you're talking about the young guys like Colton and Barboulay and Matthew Joseph and Cal Foote on defense. These guys are going to step in. They have a remarkable depth in this organization.
Yeah, I mean, Boris Katchuk will get a look. Also, Gamel Smith will get a look. Yeah. He's been getting close every year. So
Foot's injured, by the way, for a couple months. Yeah, a couple.
Right.
They do have a good system. I think Brian Elliott's going to have to play 30 to 35 games. That's a question mark in my eyes. If he could do that, because you can't run Vasilevsky into the ground like you've been doing the last few years and expect to repeat if he's playing, 58 games or something crazy like that.
And Vasilevsky would probably play almost every game for Russia in the Olympics, so he's not going to get any 2 weeks during the break.
Yeah, I'm going to cry hogwash to that. I've seen them talk about that, just like I see every year them talking about. But there is no way Vasilevsky's playing 47 games. There's just no way.
No, he's playing more than that.
That's 35 and 47.
Yeah, that's why I said between it. He'll probably
play
50. He'll play 50.
He's going to play about 55. And, you don't tell Vasilevsky. Like, I buy into the argument, because we've seen it with Tuukka Rask, that you can overplay your goaltenders. But this talk in Tampa that I've read about him playing under 50 games, nonsense. There's no way that he's going to play under 50 games.
No, I agree with you on that. But look, I think this is going to be a big year for Steve Yzerman. I actually think Yzerman had been playing a particular role the last couple of years because they've had all these other guys and he was injured. I think this is going to be a big year for Yzerman. He could step back up and take a big role again on this team if he's completely healthy. And if he is, he could make up some of the slack.
Yeah, I mean,
Steve Stamkos. Did I say Steve Eiserman?
Yeah,
you did.
Stamkos, sorry.
I was trying to follow that. Yeah, Stamkos could as well. They do have some issues though. When I've asked people around the league about it, they all made the same point that that line, that was part of the reason. They were playing 16, 17 minutes, which it's almost like a third of the game, where they were a very hard line to play against. They were problematic, and they don't have a lot of guys coming up that can do that. So they're going to be a little bit different team.
They'll be different, yeah.
So that'll be the same, and
I think their survivability is less. Like, okay, they lose Stamkos for an entire year, they're able to survive. They lose Kucherov, or Kucherov can't play because of the injury and the surgery and the cap hit, and he comes back in the playoffs. They've been able to survive that because of the incredible depth of that organization. I don't think they can survive Hedman being out for 50 or 60 games, or Stamkos being out, or Vasilevsky. That's it. Like, they were able to survive that. Now I don't think they can.
Yeah,
those are fair points.
They've got Hedman said he's 100%. He feels great. He had off-season knee surgery, so. That's good news. Killorn is also going to be ready at the start of the season, which is more good news. However, I've run this by people. Does anyone know where the Tampa Bay Lightning were ranked last year in scoring?
No.
10th, maybe 10th.
Yeah. That year they were 8th.
Okay.
And there's there's been some talk when I've had discussions with other GMs about this could be the year where they fall out of the top 10. So if you fall out of the top 10 in scoring, and now I looked at it, they lost about 50 goals, but some of those younger guys are going to get some of those.
Right.
But if they lose even 20 goals, they're going to fall out of the top 10.
And but they have a good enough defense and goalie that they could start playing like the Islanders and win by differential if they had to.
That's the point I was just going to make. They're going to have to maybe adjust their game because they have been winning by outscoring them for a long time now. And usually before they had fallen to 8th, and let's remember that Kucherov was last year too. But before they fell to 8th, they had been 1st or 2nd for a number of years. So it's going to be a little bit different for them. But I think they got a legitimate shot. It's been 38 years since anybody did it, but I think they've got a chance, a realistic chance to do it.
Yeah, I think they have a good chance. I think that the Islanders making their moves. I'm sure our friend NL King on Twitter, Russ, will be rolling over in his grave when I say that the Islanders might be the favorite in the Eastern Conference. But with the
he'll agree with you.
Yeah, with the addition of Chara and Parise to that group, and only losing, I think Leddy is a significant loss, but Everly, I think they're really strong, and they were Game 7 of the Eastern Conference, or the Stanley Cup semifinal last year. So maybe they've taken a step ahead, but
it depends how healthy they are. If they all of a sudden start getting stung by the injury bug, you don't know.
Some breaking news here that we'll finish off the show with. Eck lost power, so he had to bow out, and we completely understand that. Elliot Friedman just reported that the NHL expects full capacity in 30 of the 32 buildings to start the season. The only ones that he believes will not have full capacity will be Rogers Arena in Vancouver at 50% and the Bell Center in Montreal at 33%. Ontario just upgraded. The Leafs were going to have their first preseason game on Saturday in front of only 1,000 fans, but they've now moved up to 50%. So that would lead me to believe that in the next 3 weeks, they'll get up to 100% based on this report. So, Kev,
it's weird though. Oh, sorry. I was just going to say it's weird. It's weird, Kev. I mean, the Bell Center was the one that opened the restrictions earlier than anybody, and now they're lagging behind. I don't understand it.
Yeah, I don't. Well, the other good news is with the projection that Bill Daley made of an increase next year in the salary cap of even $1 million is I think what that means is that a lot of teams that I had talked to, that their ticket people were concerned about renewal of season tickets. That suggests to me, even though they have an increase in the television revenue, which is probably helping that growth. But that would suggest to me that it's going okay on the season ticket renewal. So not only do we have the capacity, but it sounds like maybe we may be having good crowd. And the NFL, they've been surprisingly good in terms of number of people that are willing to
But they
squeeze.
are outdoor. Like, Kev, they're going to be people that buy seats and still don't show up to every game. Like, we know that.
I know. Yeah. Yeah. We have an indoor one in Detroit, and we did not go to the first game.
Right.
That depending on your point of view, that is encouraging. I think that obviously the teams want as many fans as possible in the buildings. I know that in Toronto, John Tavares, Jason Spezza, a number of players, we're very happy to see the media. And we're even happier at the prospect of playing in front of fans after a year and a half and a playoff of not being in front of fans. So we'll see how that plays out. But great show, guys. We'll be back. We may not have a show on Friday, but we'll stay tuned to my Twitter feed and we'll let you know. If not, we'll be back on Monday with another edition of HockeyBuzzcast for the departed Eklund for. Russ Cohen, for Kevin Allen, I'm Michael. Thanks for watching, and remember, without the buzz, it's just